Look, a massive welcome to everyone. So this is kind of our second video podcast recording. I don't know if we can count number one, David, where just me, you, and Federico were just, to be honest, just laughing and joking a little bit.
Yeah, this is the first official one, let's put it that way.
Yeah, so first official. So this forms part of the NatWest and WMG Clean Transport podcast. So we are working with businesses ultimately that are looking to decarbonise transport. And what a better way to kick off than with Tom Morgan from Supersmith. Really excited to have you here. I've got to ask you
Great
this
to be
straight
here.
away. Prince William.
Oh yes, wasn't that amazing? We were lucky, right? We were lucky. We got told about 10 days before the visit, and he was coming to see one of his Earthshot kind of prizes and see the company in Bristol, and that enabled him to kind of do a few other visits, particularly to the University of West England, where we're based. And as part of that, we were selected, and we're not entirely sure how, but we were selected as a couple of businesses from the robotics lab for him to meet. And then the good news is that a supercomputer is a really dull photograph. Let's be honest, right? For something so amazing, it's pretty dull. And so we benefited enormously from his positive attitude towards getting on our vehicle, giving it a go, which we were far from certain he would. And the consequence of that was just was gold dust for us. So yeah, he that has gone kind of quite a long way in terms of media and social and some follow up as well. So yeah, we've been delighted with that. It was great.
What was his what did he say? Because obviously he got to use the product. So what was his feedback?
Yeah, so he found it good. He said it's good. It's stable, which is like the thing we want to hear, right? That's the kind of and he was really positive about just giving it a go and recognizing that there's a big safety issue with mobility scooters. He was shocked to hear that mobility scooters have 5 times the fatalities per kilometer traveled than motorbikes. This is a statistic we talk about a lot, and that was big news to him. And I think he understands the kind of psychological barriers to using these devices, right? They're vital tools, but actually people don't actually want to use them. They stay in their homes. And so, yeah, when he given the opportunity to get on, he was like, well, if this helps people, use them more and get out their homes, then I'm up for it. Let's do it. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was like the whole entourage that goes with it is both very impressive and kind of circus. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's got their roles, and it's a huge team that supports this sort of thing.
David, did you get a chance to see the video? Have you seen the video of him?
I have indeed, yeah. And I think it's, as you said, I think, Tom, a lot of it's just being the right place at the right time. But when those opportunities come, they're exactly what you need just to get a bit more noise about what the company's doing, right?
Yeah, completely. And obviously, behind the scenes, things weren't smooth. So Fred, our chief technology officer and co-founder, together with Emily, he was out of the country. He had to leave the country, and we have not done a test ride without Fred because it's a prototype vehicle, right? It's not a production vehicle. It has its foibles. It needs fettling to kind of get it in good shape. And so, yeah, the first time we've done a test ride without Fred was with the Future King. So we were all a little nervous, and it went great. So thank goodness for that.
Fantastic. Well, look, maybe I know we've sort of dived straight into, as you said, the Future King and his endorsement of your wonderful product, but maybe because I know a lot of people here might be hearing about Supersmith for the first time. Tom, could you just tell us a little bit more about the business?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, maybe obvious now, but we are designing, manufacturing, and selling a new type of mobility scooter. So this is an alternative to the traditional 3- and 4-wheel scooters that you might have seen around. If we start with why on earth are we kind of focused on this part of the market? It's my sister. So my sister has multiple sclerosis. She was diagnosed in her early 30s, super active squash player, horse rider, and over time, walking has become very, very difficult for her. So for probably 15, maybe 20 years, mobility scooters have been a kind of vital connection for her to maintain her active social life, to get out in the world, leave the home. And, I've seen firsthand or through her the kind of difficulties that presents. Initially, she just would avoid using one, because of the stigma associated with it and because of that sense of giving up, which I think is common for lots of people. And then over time, it's more of a practical challenge, right? They're either too heavy to lift, awkward to collapse. She has neck ache. She's from sitting, staring up at people continuously. And, it's just a less confident and reassuring place to be if you're below everyone else that's standing or talking or walking around you. So it's been a long held ambition for a long time to kind of do something better. And I've been fortunate enough to stumble on something that genuinely does create a better experience. So that's what we're doing. We're bringing it to market this year.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I know you've kind of touched upon a couple of things there, and the stability issue being one of them. But so what does the Supersmith product do that kind of disrupts, I suppose, the traditional mobility scooter market?
Yeah, so we'll start with that then. So we were trying to solve the safety problem, and 3- and 4-wheel scooters, they tip over. And the solution to that is to sit people low and back to the kind of slow seating position. And so we always thought that if we could help solve the stability problem, then we will be able to crack loads of other kind of side issues. And a 3-wheel device, we've all maybe as kids been on trikes or whatever, like 3 wheels are a terrible solution if you want to stay upright. They just, they quickly tip over. However, 3 wheels are brilliant if you want to be agile, lightweight, foldable. You cannot use a 4-wheel vehicle indoors, right, or in crowds. Austin Powers, do you remember that? I can never remember the name of the film, but when he's stuck in the kind of alleyway, right, trying to do an 84-point turn in his 4-wheel vehicle, like that's the reality for lots of people that choose 4 wheels because they're safer. And so we knew we wanted 3 wheels. We knew we wanted to solve the stability problem. Therefore, we had to come up with something different. And I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but the route to us solving that problem was not straightforward. We were actually trying to solve a quick fold problem originally. And I had a conversation with a mentor and coach who was brilliant at the time. And I was playing back to him our research. We'd kind of gone out and done workshops and interviews and surveys with people, typically from the multiple sclerosis community in the US where we were living at the time. And I was playing back what we'd learned. And amongst all my noise and kind of data and chaos, he just really clearly just said, look, it's the stability problem. I think that's what you're telling me. If you can solve that, you're going to be in a great place. And so I was working away from home that day. And so I went to staying out somewhere in the States, I think North Carolina. And I went down to a local bar for pizza. And I just sat there with a piece of paper for a couple of hours. And by the end of the night, I turned the fold mechanism that we have into a self-stabilizing mechanism using the same swinging legs. And at that moment, I thought, actually, I can solve all these issues with one tweak to the design. And so the problem to solve then became an electronics and software problem rather than the mechanical problem. We'd got the architecture for the vehicle. And it hasn't changed pretty much from that evening. And we're kind of 7 years on, and it's pretty much, apart from tweaks, it's pretty much the same architecture. It's really been, can we extract the data we need from the surface to understand its orientation, clean that data up, and then intervene in a way that is electrically efficient, so we're not burning too much energy, and that the loads involved are affordable and lightweight enough. And so that's been the kind of effort.
Fantastic. And I mean, you mentioned a minute ago about neck ache, which, if I'm honest, listening to you, is something that I would have never considered being something that would ail someone who's using products like this. Could you talk more about maybe some of those maybe unspoken or hidden kind of user challenges that you've also tried to tackle with the design of the product?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things is, so our three-wheel vehicle, it adjusts for you over uneven ground and the like, and therefore you float. Your sensation is one of floating. If you go around a corner, it kind of gently leans you in, right? And so you can sit there in a relaxed manner, and you don't have to concern yourself with the kind of terrain you're going over. And so this brings a couple of benefits. One, it kind of reduces your cognitive load, right? The stress felt by lots of people with mobility scooters to watch like a hawk what's happening 6 feet, 10 feet in front of them, because if there's an obstacle, you're at risk of tipping over, right? And so if we can reduce that effort, then we give people presence back, right? They can be present with the person they're with or the environment that they're in. They can enjoy the company around them. They don't have to kind of stop talking to concentrate on the terrain in front of them. And then the other aspect of it is because of that floating sensation, you're not jerking from left to right. So if you follow behind someone on a mobility scooter, you'll see them kind of using their body weight to balance as you go over a camber or maybe uneven ground. And so this jerkiness is what people get familiar with. And this brings pain and fatigue issues for the people that might suffer from kind of core strength or lower back pain. And so we believe that it's just totally different experience, right? You are floating, you don't have to concern yourself. There's less stress, there's less fatigue, possibly less pain for some people. So it's chalk and cheese. It's absolutely chalk and cheese. And I think that is kind of what I'm most excited about, because everyone will experience that differently and have different benefits from that kind of journey. But I'm looking forward to learning from our customers as to how they find it and what additional benefits it might bring.
Tom,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, carry on.
no, because I was going to say the same question as you, David. I didn't know that. So do you feel it's like there's a big education piece here on that subject matter? Because
Yeah.
obviously I went on your LinkedIn this morning and I took the quote. So you're looking to reinvent the mobility scooter, but do you feel there's a big drive here to educate people on the benefits?
Yes. So definitely, that nobody is searching for safer mobility scooter, right? Nobody. We've done all the kind of SEO, search engine optimization kind of experiments and the like, and that it's I can't quite work out why. It's either there's a lack of understanding that these are really dangerous, right? And the stats back it up, credible statistics back it up that they are dangerous. But I think also people just take it for granted, right? There isn't a choice, and therefore it's not worth kind of questioning the fact that there is a safer solution out there. And so it's a question. We are, when it comes to brand positioning, and this is probably what the most complex part for us, right? Once you've got the technology nailed, Fred won't thank me for saying that that's easy, but it's we've come a long way, and we're pretty confident we know where we are now. But from a brand perspective, it's like, well, how do we position ourselves? Because we absolutely, like, part of the problem is a psychological problem around how these vehicles are perceived. So we have to solve that problem as well as the technical problem of the safety issue. And that means we've got to start from a different place. We've got to we've got to talk about our vehicle differently. We've got to, it's got to be found in different environments. It's got to be branded distinctly and differently. And so do we go on a safety push, right? But there's a big education aspect to that, right? And as a small company with a small budget, educating a population is difficult. So what we have found, still work in progress, is that it looks different. And this is what captures people's imagination within half a second. And half of the people on our wait list at the moment are new to mobility scooters. And the common story is, I know I would benefit from one, but I don't want one that's on the market today. I've seen yours, and that would make it easier for me to get out the house and use a vehicle like this, because we've just got a lower barrier, because we don't look like a traditional mobility scooter. And therefore, we've got an opportunity to create a brand which isn't solely for older people. Right? Most mobility scooters and the shops and the retail experience is targeted for older people that have other medical needs as well. Whereas we think of our customer as mid-40s or so, right? They've got a whole wide range of reasons why they might benefit. It's not excluding anyone that is older, but we, even the people that are considered older that I know, they don't think of themselves as old. So why would we reinforce that age issue? So it's a long way of going around your story, but I think it's about solving the wider problem of repositioning this product in the market. And we do have a global ambition. So it's like, how do we change the way the world thinks about mobility scooters? That's our mission, if you like, because they make people feel rubbish every day of the week, even if they're useful, right? And they are incredibly useful. They might not make you feel good about getting out the home. And that's what we're trying to do, change the way people feel.
I'm definitely a product man, so I love to physically use, touch, feel, like in this AI crazy world. I love a product. So I suppose there's an ultimate challenge there as well, where actually if someone uses your product, they see the benefit. So I suppose the challenge is from a brand perspective, education piece and this cool tag. My parents are going through that. Like my parents probably could do one, to be fair. But this kind of cool tag, but also if they can't try it, I think once they try it, like Prince William did, it'd be like, I'm in, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is our big bottleneck. I think we have found that with the benefit of PR, right, but also our digital marketing, we can find people relatively easily who have a need, who know that they would benefit from something like ours. And we've got loads of wonderful kind of messages in our inbox since the kind of Prince William PR hit, just saying, I've been looking for something like this for years. I'm so delighted. When can I come and try one? But trying one is our bottleneck, because we are going to keep it ourselves. We're going to do that part ourselves. And to give a good experience, we need to do that really well. And we're just going to be limited with the ability to kind of get that quality experience through. But I'm kind of excited about that, actually. I think I don't know, again, if you want to go down this, but we're doing a lot of research into how do you give a good experience for people. And, it's not about selling a product at all. It's about creating a relaxed environment where people can make good decisions and they feel they're empowered and they're in control. And how you curate that moment and that experience for them is a really interesting challenge. Yeah.
It's a really interesting kind of topic, I find, Tom, because I mean, as you said, this is, from, if I'm understanding correctly, no one talks about mobility scooters, and use the word cool in the same language. We don't, in the same sentence, we don't consider these things as cool things. And many of the users, this is a compulsory purchase for them. They are in a situation in their lives where it's this, or I imagine just accept being housebound or have massively reduced mobility. And so I imagine that poses quite an interesting challenge to the companies, you said, in terms of positioning and balancing these ergonomic factors with things like you mentioned earlier, the efficiency of the scooter itself and the more technical, practical things.
Yes, exactly. There's a number of brands that have successfully achieved this, and I think they're kind of well trodden. So I'll mention them briefly, but all your listeners will be more than aware. But the electric car was pretty uncool, right? Until Tesla came along and made them cool. Vacuum cleaners used to be cool, not cool, and then Dyson had a design-led kind of perspective and an innovative perspective on them. And I think there's lots of examples like that. So we're not saying that we're going to be the next Tesla or the next Dyson. We're going to say we're the next Supersmith, but I think we can learn from what they've done. And I think that's back to brand, right? And when I say brand, I mean, it's the DNA of every single thing we do. So every part of our business needs to be true to our values and communicate what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to achieve it. And at the moment, for example, it's the test ride experience, right? How do we curate an experience which is true to our brand and amplifies and just sends a signal that we're different? Or it's not for public knowledge now, unfortunately, but it will be soon. We've got we've got a partnership with one retailer in London, which is simply a brand that you would never imagine having a mobility scooter in. And it is cool, right? This retailer is everything. It's cool to the core, and it has been for 100 years. And that's a signal, right? And it's we're just trying to work out how do we amplify the message that we're trying to do and cut it through everything. But it's not always about cool, right? It's about practical and accessible. And so, whether it might be, the National Trust is a brilliant organization, right? Well trusted and present across the UK. That would be a great partnership probably for us. It's just finding a collection. I also think, like, my mum has an iPhone. She likes it. My 22-year-old niece has an iPhone. She loves it. There is zero stigma from an age perspective, none. And I think that evaporation of that idea that it's a generational product is pretty magical. And so I don't know how we quite achieve that, but if we can create something that it's not about your age, it's about your mindset, it's about your willingness to engage, and in that context be social. In our context, it's about grabbing life and making the most of it. That's what we want to be.
I mean, culturally, is there any countries that have really kind of embraced? Because look, I think looking at the why from your perspective, and it'd be great to hear what that vision looks like in the future in terms of how Supersmith is going to change the world ultimately. But what are the challenges facing you, not just in the UK, but across the world?
So, I mean, if you look at the UK, we have one of the highest densities of mobility scooters per head of population anywhere. And I think that's, there's a funding, affordability, and a social aspect to that, right? And we've got institutions that kind of can support funding, a strong retail network. So over many years, right, we've got a lot of mobility scooters in the UK. It's a big market. But our long-term driver is aging population. I mean, there's no getting away from that, right? And like Italy, the next markets in Europe would be Germany, Italy, Spain. Italy's aging population is extraordinary when you look at the kind of where it's going in the next kind of 10, 15 years. But I think socially they're lagging, perhaps apart from Germany. There's less acceptance of mobility scooters, perhaps culturally. France being a particular example where they just seem to. I'm not close enough, but you would anecdotally, there is people feel less good about getting out on a mobility scooter in France than they do other countries, and there's less infrastructure to support them. So it's a smaller market as a consequence. I think if you go to Far East, right, and so whether it's South Korea, China, Japan, they embrace technology in a way that I think closer European countries simply don't. And I think that's a really fascinating place for us to go and explore. So, early days, but we're just exploring those sorts of opportunities at the moment.
But if all your dreams could come true right now, me and David could just click our fingers, what would that look like for Supersmith?
I think it has to be about how people think about using a vehicle, right? So globally, right, we have changed the way millions of people feel about getting out of their homes. It's easier, it's more enjoyable, they're safer. So that is a global problem to solve. But I think more than that, I think it's like our first scooter is a 4 mile an hour pavement scooter. It's the biggest segment in the market. But there are many other forms of vehicle. So one example is, the fastest segment of transport at the moment is micromobility, right? In cities, shared micromobility. the legislation is lagging and it's hard going at times, right? And cities are kind of loving them, then hating them. But the reality is consumers love it. Right? It is growing at a rapid rate around the world. E-bikes and e-scooters. Neither of those vehicle formats are accessible. Nobody with a walking difficulty, well, very, very few can consider those as options. And yet is low carbon, convenient, affordable transport that cities are absolutely going to adopt, because you don't then have to invest in the massive infrastructure projects of underground or overground or, you know, bus networks. It just joins up the last mile. And so I don't think these things are going away. And we see a world where vehicles like ours, maybe ours, is in every fleet, in every city, in every, you know, country of the world. Because it's like in the UK, like 24% of people are going to have a disability. That's not a small proportion of, that's a quarter of the population. And a significant proportion of those would benefit from a more accessible micromobility vehicle, which we have. So why wouldn't you know, those vehicles be everywhere and providing people with that kind of low carbon transport solution that the rest of us can benefit from?
It must really motivate you though. It must really, like, I know we've joked about getting up really early, but like I think all three of us love what we do and we've got this kind of drive. But that's also tough as well, Tom, isn't it? Like, you know, given the vision and the why of the business, how do you keep motivating yourself to keep pushing yourself to make this impact that you're trying to make?
Steps are small, right? We've been at this 7 years now, so I think not getting too ahead of ourselves. Whilst we have that big goal, it is, you know, our immediate ambition is for the next 6 months, and we know where we want to be by the end of the year. But really, it's the next 6 months, and we're really clear on what those goals and targets look like. So, you know, to avoid it becoming overwhelming and to avoid it becoming lacking the clarity of what is the most important thing to do today. So, you know, I've got 3 things to do today, and I'll be, you know, if I can achieve those 3 things, they're all, you know, none of them are mountains to move, they're all manageable. And if I can do that, then I'll pick my daughter up tonight and I'll feel fine about the fact that I'm not, you know, behind what I hoped. And so it's just, we try and do that as a team. We come together, you know, at the beginning of the week and the end of the week, set our targets and celebrate them at the end of the week. So it's every journey, right? It's 1,000 steps. And so we're probably on step 276 this week.
On that note, Tom, I mean, as a founder of a company, what do you feel has been the biggest challenge so far?
Yes. So, wow. I think the things, I'm trying to say it in a way that doesn't just make it sound like it's cash, right? Because it always is. But I think to put it in the way that actually it's happened is, you know, these things run on belief. And initially it was the belief of me, and then, you know, not eventually, but, you know, Emily, my wife and partner and co-founder, I believed that was an important stakeholder to believe in what we're doing. And then Fred, right, third co-founder, he also believed there was something going right. So you start that, and you just got to, a few of you have to learn, have to believe in something. And then the entire project for years is just maintaining a fragile belief. And that is convincing one person at a time, because people need to, like, grant funding was vital to us. So you got to convince that community. And then, you know, our kind of initial investors, they've got to believe. And so I think for me, that felt really fragile, as if something could smash that belief, whether it was our belief, but the wider belief, really easily. And so it put me on edge for quite a long time about the fact, well, and we didn't know it was going to work, right? It was genuine and an innovation in the sense that we didn't know it would work. We had an idea, But for all those reasons I mentioned earlier, the technical achievement of what we saw might be possible was not certain for 4 years, 5 years. Like, so that entire time, it's built on hope. But you've got to believe, you've got to convince others to believe. And I wouldn't feel comfortable if I was doing that, leading people astray. Does that make sense? And so there's a tension. There's a tension between what you believe to be possible, the reality of whether you know it's possible, and then trying to convince the world. And in that mix, it can all feel very fragile. And so, any moment, a stumble could have happened. A lack of belief or a loss of support, funding that just unravels the momentum that you're building. So I now feel a lot more certain, but for years it all felt very uncertain.
And on that note, if for instance someone's watching this is a founder themselves or someone who is maybe on that precipice of becoming one, any advice for people in that situation to maintain that belief and keep that going?
Yeah, totally. So it's always been amazing for us to talk to people with the problem, right? That have the problem we're trying to solve. And back to what we were talking about to start with, it's pretty easy to get motivated when. So we talk about this occasionally. We met a woman called Ellie in the States. She lived close to us, and she had a young daughter. She couldn't walk. It was too difficult for her to walk to the local playground, so she wouldn't go. Right? She couldn't take her. I think her daughter was probably 5 at the time. So she didn't go to the playground with her daughter. And on asking, well, why not get a mobility scooter or something that would help you? The answer was, my husband would. I feel a bit embarrassed about it, and my husband thinks I'll look silly on it, and so I won't get one. And it's like, that is so sad, right? That is, and so we think about Ellie, and it's like, if we can help her get to the playground with her daughter, then it's all worthwhile. And so I think stick close to, remind yourself regularly as to kind of the why you're doing it, and make it human. Find the people that you're trying to help. That's been great for us. And I think that our story is not unusual, right? For all of us that are founders, you never know if it's going to work, and you never know if it's going to be successful. So talk to people that have stood in those shoes that you're standing in, and they'll empathize and build that kind of team spirit, if you like, because it's a familiar feeling to anyone that has gone through this experience, and it is extremely reassuring when you realize that it's not you that's weird, it's the entire process that's weird, and you're just doing your best. So be kind with yourself, right? Don't give yourself a hard time. There's loads of mistakes, and it's just that's the job, right? Take the stakes, take the risk, move on. And I think when you realize that, it's a lot easier.
I must say I find it really refreshing actually to listen to you talking about the belief and the hope and things, because actually for most people, if they go out and they jump on Google or open a book around business or founding a business, it leaps straight into managing cash and marketing strategies and things like this. And these sorts of conversations are rarely spoken about. Yeah, if I've heard you correctly, and from my own experience knowing as well, that's the reality of what it means like to be a founder.
Yeah, completely. So I really benefit from someone that kind of took me under his wing a bit. He's a successful hardware founder, multiple exits, including kind of floating one of his companies on the NASDAQ, and he just offered, can I, I'll happily be a bit of a coach. Just call me whenever. And so I talked to him every 3-4 months. He never asked me about he's never coached me once about the business, right? Or, debt or equity or, shareholder agreements. He's never come close. He always checks in with me on my mindset, how I'm doing, my well-being, how am I looking after myself? How am I looking after my team? How are they feeling? What's the relationships? And it's been a real eye-opener for me to kind of to benefit from his concern, right, and his thoughtfulness, but also these are the things that are important, right? If you can, it's better to, I feel it's better to make like one clear decision than 20 unclear decisions. And for that, you just need to be grounded and you need to be in a reasonable state, right? I'm not saying I'd say I'm rarely in a great state, right? In terms of calmness and well-being, life's busy, but if you can keep a clear head, and I think he's showed me that it's better for yourself, right? Because it's a marathon. It is an absolute marathon. And I think I hadn't appreciated that either. How long you need to be in the game for it to work out.
Well,
Yeah, and
I'm gonna dive in, David, conscious that the recording is probably going to go off, and I'd hate to do that, given the time. And Tom, just a massive thank you from yourself and Supersmith. When we post this next podcast, we'll put the link to the website and we'll put some information in there for people to go and visit and check you out and connect on LinkedIn. But just a massive thank you to everyone. Any questions, whack it in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the conversations that we've had. Have a cracking rest of the week. We are the NatWest and WMG Clean Transport Accelerator. Get involved, reach out to myself, David, and Federico. And yeah, hopefully see you on the next session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you both.
Thank
thanks.
you.